So it's the voice from the light. That's what it's called.
That's more the stuff there, man. That's what I should be reading there.
Yeah.
Some of that.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Ghosts?
What happens when we die? Do you think? What happens when we die? Do you think, Tony?
Well, I'll tell you what I think a ghost is. It's like to do with the person who doesn't realise that they're dead.
Mm-hmm.
So the essence remains.
Mm-hmm.
And they refuse to leave the sensory sort of world that we live in.
Mm-hmm. Where do you think they go?
It's an interesting question, that, because that's to do with vibrational frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So everything exists as a vibration. So the things that we cannot see are still there, or feel, but they still exist as a vibrate way. You know all this anyway yourself.
Mm-hmm. Have you had any experiences
Of ghosts.
ghosts or spirits, whatever you want to call them?
The main one was when I was 12. The house that we lived in, or what my mum lives in now. And anyway, I was off school for some reason, can't remember. And have I told you this? Anyway, my ma had gone to shops. And so I'm sitting waiting for her in the house, like I've said. And I turned around and there's a guy in the doorway. He's about 6 foot. The door 6 foot 6. He was about 6'2", 3. He had a flip pork pie hat on, big scarf, half a beard, big long coat, brogues. And I sort of turned and looked down and was like, how the hell did he get in? And then I looked back up and I turned and he'd gone. But I saw all that. So I mean, that was when I was 12.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, my mom came in and I said, I've just seen somebody in the door, and she says, oh, who was it? I says, I haven't got a clue. Anyway, I described, and my mum said, that was the man who lived in this house before we moved here. So that was like 1971-2, but he died like before we actually moved to the house.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously I hadn't seen him, you know.
So that was your very first experience, do you think?
It's one that I can recollect the easiest. The one that comes to mind when you asked us, straight away I thought, that's the one.
Mm-hmm.
But sort of the stuff I've done since then, like for like research, I suppose. What's the best word for it? That doesn't not alarm us. What's the word? It's kind of normal now. That stuff's not like ghosts and things are normal to me. Whereas obviously when I was a kid they weren't.
Yeah, of course.
But
so, yeah.
the weirdest one I saw was when I was about, I know you're going to laugh because I always remember my dates and my times, when I was about 24, 5-year-old, and I'd gone for a walk because I used to live on me Todd. And I'd gone for a walk up a place called Warden Law, and I was standing, in fact I wrote it in my book, and I was standing at the gate, beautiful sunny dinner time it was. I always remember it was dinner, I don't know why I remember that. And there was a cornfield, and it was like, you know, what do you call it? At the beginning of the film Gladiator, where he walks through the corn with his hands, and it's in slow motion. I think it is anyway. I was stood at the gate, and I was like just admiring the view and everything. And all of a sudden, this shape suddenly manifest, literally, about, I don't know, 100 yards across the field, across the corn. And this shape suddenly manifested and started moving across. So I blinked a few times to like, what the hell's that? And it got to about like where I am now on my arm. And it became aware that I was aware of it.
Right.
And it came straight at us, like a bullet.
Really?
across the top of the cone, and by the time I got to where about your car is now, maybe it's a bit closer, my mind blanked it off as a non-reality, and it literally disappeared. Anyway, I did a bit of research to find out the shape, and what I believe that I saw was what the Red Indians call a Manitou spirit.
Really?
Yep. I've told you that before.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, nearly filled my pants, obviously, but
You've also seen extraterrestrials and all that?
no, my friend
Yeah.
did. I've seen UFO craft.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen craft that couldn't be anything other than UFOs. So if it was an unidentified flying object, then. But
when was that?
yours last time.
Oh,
In
of
Spain.
course, in Spain, yeah.
It was moving between the.
Yeah, unbelievable.
It was moving between Orion's belt, the middle star and the left star. Remember?
I do.
That was something else. That like.
It's a beautiful night. One of the finest nights of my life. I was just thinking about that the other night, actually.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. Should be
What a
more
night.
then.
What a night.
That's something else and all. If I asked this to Andy, says if we had a place. Because I've thought about it many times about having a spiritual retreat.
Oh, beautiful.
And just come and everybody just chips in though.
You have one now, here?
No. But I mean, I'm
Excellent.
talking about lying on your back looking at the stars
I
in,
know.
in
Wonderful.
28 degrees heat.
Okay, so getting back to your book.
Aye, so.
So where do you think you got this information from?
Higher consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
The way I describe it is, this is interesting because I was just thinking about it the other day again, even though I did write it. Try and explain your current life. Am I still there?
Yep.
Try and explain your current life, just an ordinary Joe Blogg's life, which is actually extraordinary, but people didn't realise that. Try and explain your ordinary life now to your 5-year-old self. Try and explain what you do on a daily basis, just normal. You get up in the morning, see the kids, kick the wife out the door to go and get the money in. Emma? Just try and explain how you compute the world now as a man in his 40s. Try and explain that to your 5-year-old self. And yet you're connected because you're both the same person. So the knowledge that I'm talking about is from somewhere higher up the line of who I am and who I'll become, but it's available now because I realised that everything that's discovered and uncovered by science and everything that's like found and everything it already exists. That already exists. So somewhere within the cosmos now is an idea of our future selves, whether in this flesh body or another one, because that's all it is to me anyway. That already exists. Somewhere within time, space, beyond time and space, beyond sort of, because Einstein says when you reach the speed of light, time stops. So if we live in the light, we live in the eternal moment of time, seen from a different perspective. So every time you sort of move, like you're moving now, like the day you're here, and I'm sort of da-di-da-di-da, we've met today and we're talking now, and then you go off on your sort of sojourn journey, onto your next bit of sort of your experience, and I'll sit and watch the telly and shout at politicians or whatever I'm on to do. But that'll be sort of another point whereby my consciousness has moved within the eternal moment of time. And it's absolutely mind-blowing, so. But that's how I see it. Whether that actually happens in reality, I don't know. People may argue with me. That's entirely up to them. They're entitled to free will choice to see it from their own perspective.
Wonderful.
Isn't it?
So how far are we getting with the book now so far?
100,000 words.
100,000 words.
Easily.
You started about 5 years ago, didn't you?
The end of 2010, beginning of 2011. Probably 2011 officially. You know where I'm like with my dates and times, so
So it was mainly through the night when you got this information?
always.
Always?
What a pain in the arse.
Between 3 and 6?
3 and 5, aye.
That when the
Yeah. And what's interesting about that is apparently you're very psychoactive, for want of a better description.
Mm-hmm.
What's the matter?
Oh.
My foot's shaking us.
Yeah, shaking it. Go on.
You're very, from what I understand, like to do with the rhythms of sort of who we are and human beings, we're really quite psychoactive in dream state and what have you, between the hours of 3 and 5. Because there's 4 main states, the alpha, beta, alpha, theta and delta, and they get progressively longer and slower the deeper you go into your sleep. And what's interesting, what I've discovered, is that when you're very, very asleep, which is when you're in delta state, I don't know if that's REM sleep. I mean, I can't remember the research that I looked at. But anyway, when you're very, very, very asleep, you're actually just under conscious awareness in terms of like some kind of state that goes on in your brain. It's really strange. And the other thing about REM sleep is that stops you moving. So you don't you can sleepwalk, but you're in a different state.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I saying this?
Information through the night.
Yes.
If you book.
So I'm presuming that while I'm in this psychic state or a deeper state than where I normally am, where everything that exists, all that is exists, somehow my consciousness can tap into it because of the way that I'm particularly wired up and because I'm interested in that. It sort of condenses, if you like, or distills from all these vague sort of random thoughts, and then all of a sudden I'll wake up and I'll have this sort of it's basically a download because I'm not thinking. Told this before,
Yeah.
and I just write it, and then I look afterwards when I've woke up or whenever it is, and I'll look at it and I think, that's interesting, because one of the first ones I got was to do with being mortal and being enlightened, and how you sort of shift between the two. And I've since found out that every single human being that's ever been and never will be, at the core of themselves, everyone is enlightened. But our minds and our belief systems stops from believing that we are. So therefore we don't believe that we are, and belief being sort of designed the way it is inside of us, what we believe to be true is. So, and that's exactly how it works. Well, for me anyway. It's a strange old thing, belief.
Incredible.
Isn't it just?
It's incredible. So you got 100,000 words now?
Something like that, aye. Last count. It's like I was saying to you earlier though about putting them in diary form rather than in book form, because they've got no kind of chronological order. Because some of the things come from years ago when I first started on my path to understand myself, and yet, like I was just saying earlier about them things connect, how they connect. Like from 25 years ago till just last week or just last month, and they're connected because I understand there's no time. That's what used to puzzle me about karma, because I used to think John Lennon sang about instant karma, which I didn't know what the hell he was on about when he sang about it, because I didn't understand what karma was then. But a lot of people think karma is a kind of what's the word, a revenge system. It's not a revenge, it's just balance. And when you step out of your own balance, inside of yourself, there's a system within you, I suppose you could call it your conscience, that sort of insists, or maybe that's not the right word, but needs to balance itself up, because that's the equilibrium of nature. Is it alright, Tom?
Yep, perfect.
And so that balance is then sort of at some point within the soul's existence, within the lifetime of the person, or another lifetime if you want. Some people don't believe in that. Personally, I know it for a fact for myself. But somewhere within the balance that's needed is there'll be a scenario or a situation, and the soul, because of its vibration, will vibrate the actual sort of that into existence. And then things can happen, certain things can happen. And obviously the worst ones are obviously death and disease and that sort of thing. But that's what the soul needs to understand balance of the imbalance that it created in another time. And that used to puzzle us, because I used to think how people can watch TV and you see people who do horrible things and they seem to get away with it for years and years and years. But somewhere within the cosmos, within sort of the beauty of karma, because it never forgets, because it cannot, because it's a system of a law. It's a law basically. Sometime at some point something's going to happen to that person, and it's going to be, well, it could be catastrophic, it might be a series of incidents that hopefully illuminates his own mind to the fact that his soul is asking and needing this particular sort of problem or situation to help balance itself. Because you cannot get back to your source by imbalance. It's like light coming through a diamond and it just shines out. I know it's been used before, the metaphor and everything. So the light shines out through the diamond, and you've got all the different colours and all the different hues and all the different intensities. And every single person is, in a sense, the diamond with a light shining through them, and that's the light of the spirit, if you like, or consciousness. Because to me they're the same thing. And that shines out into sort of like your particular incarnation, which for me is me now, and for you, yours now. And we are sitting talking about it. And you have your sort of different light things that you need to understand, and I have mine, otherwise known as experience and personal karma. And then all them things have to be balanced up. But the balance comes from the mind's understanding. And then you're on your way back to your source. And then when you reach the source and the balance is all balanced up, it's what Buddhists call enlightenment, or nirvana, or all the other different words that they use for it. And yet the ironic thing is that on a being level, which is the beingness of the person, you already are enlightened. It's really mad, that one, like. That really is mad, and I've only just discovered that. And the other thing that's really interesting about it is a man that I've just come across. I bought his book 20 odd years ago, and the man's name's Ramana Maharshi, and he was basically an illuminated, enlightened soul who lived in India, and many people went to him. Ralph Waldo Emerson was one of his, I believe anyway, was one of his students. The man who wrote the Tibetan book, The Dead Heavens Whence, he was one of them. There's a book there by Manu, Saudi Manu, whatever his name is. He was one of his, the Tao book there. There we are, man. Him.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He was a disciple of Ramana Maharshi. That's a fantastic book, so you've got to read it. Because it explains vibration of numbers and everything, as well as the tarot. Some people think it's a right load of crap. I used to as well, but I was always open-minded.
Do you believe everything you read? Or does
Oh no.
No?
God, no.
And
You've got to be sceptical.
I'm not talking about newspapers either.
No, I'm talking about everything. No, you've got to be skeptic. You've got to be skeptical. Not cynical. Funny enough, I was just talking to Ange about that earlier.
Ange is who?
Alright, my Ange. Just talking about that earlier.
Is that your wife?
Aye, my wife. My soulmate.
She is an old. A beautiful soul.
Beautiful. Both of us.
Me and you are, yeah.
All of us, aye. We are? Well, us lot are. It's not about Adolf Hitler, of course. But there must have been a reason why he existed.
Won't mention Trump.
Oh, do you not like him?
What's yours?
Do you not like him?
What?
I'm fascinated by the man. Fascinated by him.
Okay.
Well, I sort of, unfortunately for some people, I actually did a bit of research, and instead of accepting what the media have told us about who he is and so what he's supposed to have done and what he's supposed to have said, and actually when I started researching him, I found that a lot of things that were said about him actually weren't true. I mean, take for instance, just yesterday, Boris Johnson was apparently sort of going on about something that happened with he was explaining something about the French in the Second World War, but when it came on the BBC, they were on about he was on about the Nazis, and I watched it back again, and I says to Ange, I says, did he mention the Germans there? And she says, no. I said, did he mention he mentioned a book or a film in the Second World War, but he didn't mention the Nazis. But when it came on the BBC, it was all about sort of the Nazis or the Nazis, depending on which way. And I'm like, what part of reality did I see that they didn't, and they invented this idea of the Nazis on the news at 10 o'clock? Did you see it?
No, don't follow the news.
Well, you probably do the right thing. It's not so much following the news, it's like sort of it's discerning what's true and what isn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Donald Trump.
Shall we save that for the next video?
What, Donald Trump? I can do so.
I just want to speak about him now, do you?
No, well, I mean, just sort of, I don't think, I've got a feeling he's like more of a, well, obviously he's a businessman. Pardon me. The interesting thing about him is that he didn't borrow anybody else's money to get where he is.
Really?
Nope.
He steals it.
He's goes on, he's a billionaire. And the thing, the problem that sort of came about with Hillary, apart from the fact that she was a crook and is a criminal, and the administration, the Clinton administration foundation, were taking in millions from people, and that millions was to sort of buy grace and favour. These are not my words, these are people who have sort of, I just listened to what they say and then pieced it together for myself. They actually have the Clinton Foundation was actually top heavy with admin costs, and in fact it was supposed to be a charity for people, but the actual charity money was being used to buy admin costs. And the famous not famous, a well-known American business